of kings. how good it works. Whoa. Whoa.
Welcome, everyone. As you can tell, but maybe not, I am not Joshua. So, Josh is out of town. I'm filling in for some of his responsibilities. And then we also have Hovig and Nick volunteering to help. We have Anna, we have Rachel. So, we got a lot of people filling in today for some of the leaders who are out of town. Noel is out of town too. So, hopefully, it'll be a seamless transition, seamless process. But to start off with announcements, we have a couple. I want to give a blood drive recap because we had a great, successful blood drive. So thank you to all who signed up, who volunteered, who gave blood, even those who were turned away last minute. Thank you. I mean, you're willing to give. That means a lot. So we reached the goal. The goal was to get 21 units, which is pretty much 21 pints, and we got 22. So we hit the goal. First time ever doing it, we got the goal. So yeah, so good job, everyone. Thanks for volunteering. We had 40 people sign up. So, but we had 10 people, a lot of people were sick, something happened with their schedule conflict, things like that happened. A few people had to be turned away, so we could have had up to 40 people, so thanks for your willingness. We'll hopefully be doing this more often, maybe twice a year, once every 6 months kind of thing. So we want to definitely do it again next year. It was a great success, and maybe we can get more partners to come in. So great job, everyone. Thanks for volunteering. Second announcement we have is we are changing the times of Friday nights to 7 o'clock because of what we're going to be starting next month. We're going to be starting what's called workshops. So once a month, we're going to be having workshops where people that in our community, in our church, or maybe people we know of, are going to be giving a workshop of the topic that they know very well, and to free workshop to kind of help give discernment, give some knowledge to you guys. Something that you can get online, but we're going to do it here. So the first one we're going to do, it's on January 26th. We apparently have some people that are in the psychology world. So we're going to be having Jonathan lead the first one on discipline. So that's going to be on January 26th. This is both from the parent's perspective and the individual perspective. So being self-disciplined, but also disciplining your kids. If you're wanting to learn how to properly discipline your child, or if you're wanting to learn how to properly discipline yourself, you'll benefit from this workshop. Bring friends and family. This one's starting at 7 p.m.? 6 p.m. Oh, so yeah, workshop is going to be before. So it's going to be a workshop leading into this English service at 7. So workshop will be first, and then 6 o'clock, 1 hour long workshop. And then where will it be, do you know? So workshop will probably be right here in this adult Sunday school room. So if you're interested, 6 p.m. workshop. So we're going to have other topics too. We're going to have like health and fitness topics. We're going to have business topics. So anyone who's interested in giving a lecture or giving a workshop based on your expertise, you're more than welcome to sign up. Let Jonathan know, and you can give a little bit of a workshop of something. If Rehovik wants to give a real estate workshop, that'd be great. If Mr. Sam wants to give a business workshop, that would be great. I can talk about health and fitness. So we have a lot of people here who are very capable and very knowledgeable. So please give your gifts of knowledge and your expertise to the church. Everyone will benefit. Trust me about that. So next Friday, we'll be starting English service at 7. Starting next Friday. I mean, we're basically today too, but next Friday at 7 p.m. we'll be doing that. And I think that's it for announcements. Oh, and of course, Sunday mornings, we have 10 a.m. Next year. Next year, we're starting 7 p.m. Friday service. So Sunday mornings, that's going to be at 10 as usual. We have Armenian service, 10 a.m., and then we have the Sunday school, of course, 11:30 for all ages, most ages we have here, if you want to join there too. So that's all for announcements. I don't think I missed anything, but as usual, I would like to encourage you to tithe your earnings, tithe what you make, give back, so we can continue to have things like this, have workshops for people to feel like they're appreciated, that they're doing the work, even though they're doing it fully, because they're serving, but it'd be good to compensate our people who help and serve and volunteer as well. So without further ado, we're going to bring up the rest of the worship team, and then we're going to do singing, and then we'll continue on with our service.
without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw the other side. Knowing this was our salvation, Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the morning that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. The Church of Christ was born, then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not faint. By his blood and in his name, in his freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Worthy of every song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you, there is none beside you. You open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you, there is none beside you. You open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me.
As we continue into our time of meditation, you can sit, you can stand, you can kneel, whatever you're comfortable. You can come forward if you want. You can go to the back. You can do laps. I'll read a passage 3 times. Each time, focus on something different, and I'll instruct you accordingly. First time I read the passage, look for a word or phrase that stands out for you. Something that catches your attention, something that you feel is relevant or important at this moment for you right now, and what you're going through and what you're experiencing, whatever's going on in your mind. Do your best to focus on that word or phrase. The second time I read, you're going to pay attention to the words around it. What is the word and phrase trying to tell you? What is it trying to teach you? Then the third time I'll read, you'll empty your mind. You'll be thankful to God for speaking to you today through His Word. Rest in knowing that His Word is truth. His Word provides life, provides guidance. Trust in Him to be able to give you instruction on the proper way to live. Take a moment of silence, and then I'll start the first time to read. As I read, pay attention to a word or phrase that stands out to you. This is from Leviticus 26. I will place my dwelling in your midst, and I shall not hate you. I will walk among you, and I will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be their slaves no more. I have broken the bars of your yoke and made you walk tall. What word or phrase stands out for you? Silently think about it right now. I'm going to read one more time. This time, pay attention to the words surrounding whatever word or phrase stood out to you. What is God's word trying to tell you today? What is the message that you caught? What is relevant to you right now in the moment that you're in? Leviticus 26. I will place my dwelling in your midst, and I shall not hate you. I will walk among you and will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be their slaves no more. I have broken the bars of your yoke and made you walk tall. What is the verse trying to tell you today? Think of it quietly. I'm going to read it one more time. This time, the only thing you need to focus on is being thankful. Be grateful that God has spoken to you through His Word. You're here right now. Rest in His Word as I read one more time. This is from Leviticus 26. I will place my dwelling in your midst, and I shall not hate you. I will walk among you and will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be their slaves no more. I have broken the bars of your yoke and made you walk tall. Be grateful for where you are right now. continue to sit in silence, I ask the volunteers to come up. Jesus taught us to take bread and to take wine, to use them as remembrance of the sacrifice he made on the cross. He did not give us something to remember his birth. He did not give us something to remember his life. The resurrection is our hope, so we're focused on that separately, but we were taught to remember his death, the sacrifice that he made. The bread represents the body that was broken. The wine or the grape juice represents the blood that was shed. Let us partake in the Lord's communion together. When you feel led, come forward. Okay. Just like Samuel announced earlier, we're going to be starting our workshops every last Friday in January, and then going on from the year, so hopefully we can get 12 of them. Yes, if you feel led, if you feel like you want to teach what your expertise is in, please let us know. Otherwise, I will find somebody or something to talk about, so it should be fine. We'll have something to talk about, and hopefully it'll be helpful going forward, so we'll see what we can do. Last week was Christmas, right? We celebrated a bit differently with lights and candles, and we kind of looked at the story of Jesus from a different perspective. I don't know if you remember the Tenebrae service that we had done here several years ago, where it's on a Good Friday, so it ends in darkness. Well, this one is Christmas, so it ends in light. It's the opposite, so it's a clarite service, clarity that it provides that Jesus' birth brought. 2 weeks ago, we started a sermon series that I've been very excited about. Right? We're talking about God's involvement in creation and how that plays out in the story of knowing who he is, and the importance of recognizing these different aspects of God. And one of the main things we talked about 2 weeks ago was God being the creator. And that's great and all. It's important to know God the creator, but there's a very important reason that we recognize God as the creator. More than God being just the actual creator of everything, it reminds us that God is outside of creation. That's the key. That's the important thing. Yes, there's different stuff. Like I mentioned, Genesis 1 talks about Sabbath. Genesis 2 talks about relationships. But it teaches us that God is not bound by the laws of creation, by the laws of the universe in the same way that we are. Keep that in mind. This will become more relevant as we continue the series, but that's the most important truth. If you're going to take anything away from the first week, remember that. God is outside of creation. He's not bound to creation itself. We also talked about how the Bible does not tell us how God created everything, despite what we may read, because it's not important. It's irrelevant to his characteristics of who he is. All we know is that God we worship is the creator. He's outside of creation, and we know this because the Bible told us so, right? It's a belief that we have. We have faith in this. So, as usual, questions, why? Why should we know that God created everything? What difference does it make for us? What was God thinking when he put the universe into motion? What are his intentions for creation as a whole? Lots of stories of God's creating universe in many different cultures. Every culture seems to have their own story, their own perspective of why things happened the way it did. One of my favorite reasons I've ever read for why humans were created was the Babylonian story. Babylonian story believed that you have the main God created a bunch of little gods and told the little gods, go to work. And the little gods are like, well, we don't want to do work, so they created humans to do the work for them. And that's the reason why humans came to be. Humans, of course, while they were working too loud, so the other gods started to complain, and that's where the flood story comes into place for the way that the Babylonians explain it. So that's kind of what they explain, and you can kind of imagine the way it goes there. One of the humans is likable, one of the gods likes that human, teaches them to build a boat and survive the blah, blah, blah. We know the rest of the story. So there's always a reason why a culture or a religion teaches why humans were created, why everything was created in the first place. And this guides the way that we live. In Greek mythology, gods were all-powerful beings, and they had ideal bodies. Humans were created to look like gods. They look like the gods in terms of their body, but they didn't have the power. And the first thing humans were taught within Greek mythology was how to sacrifice to the gods, how to worship the gods. So within that narrative, the purpose of a human is to bring pleasure, bring glory to their respective gods. That's why they live. That's what they do, everything. In Egyptian mythology, humans were born out of the tears of joy from the god Ra, when he instructed his children to build creation for him. And he looked and saw the wonderful work of creation as it was. So humans were born out of those tears of joy. However, those humans were ungrateful. They tried rebelling against the gods, so the god destroyed majority of them. Only a small number of humans were left, so the gods relented, and those remaining humans recognized the mercy the gods had, and so in turn worshipped those gods. So in that narrative, the purpose of humans is to serve the gods because they were spared. More specific to that narrative, the first pharaoh was believed to be one of the gods. So each pharaoh after that was worshipped as if a god. Each narrative that we find gives us a different understanding of why we are supposed to live the way we're living. Chinese mythology, the goddess Nuwa created humans out of loneliness. There was another god there, but she didn't like that god, and she wanted humans to keep her company. So she started making humans. She sat down in the dirt, got some clay, and started crafting each human one by one. And she realized this is taking a long time. So she took a piece of rope, dipped it into mud, and just started flicking it. And in every flick was another human that popped out. This created their perspective of differences between humans. You see, the humans that she handcrafted one by one were the nobles. They were the rich. They were the powerful in the Chinese culture. Whereas the humans that were created in the multiples were just the workers. They were never meant to be rich. They were never meant to take any power. They were never meant to be important. They're the common worker that just exists. Created by the hand of Nuwa, very important. Touched by the hand, very important. The one that was flicked, a lot more common, not as important. Right? This narrative teaches them social structure. And that guided the way that you live. If you were born in one, you're stuck in that one. If you were born in the other one, you couldn't move out of that one. The Bible is no different. It teaches how things start so we know how we're supposed to continue and live life. As I said before, Genesis 1 teaches us Sabbath. Sabbath does not exist anywhere else. It's not taught in any other means. We learn that God set aside the seventh day of rest, so we imitate him. We value the seventh day and rest on it just like he did. We learn it from the creation story. Marriage, it's another example of something that comes from the creation story in Genesis 2. Tells us that man and woman leave their families and create a new family. We learn the function of marriage within the story. We argue that then Genesis 3 continues this creation story. We'll talk about free will next week and how that came into being with creation. But that gets taught in Genesis 3. The beginnings teach us how we're supposed to live our life. And I'm sure every single one of us has taught a lesson or have been taught a lesson to ourselves. In therapy, I sit with parents a lot because I work with their kids. And I teach parents how they're supposed to talk to their children about difficult topics. In English, we call the word is broaching. You broach a topic, a difficult topic with somebody. When parents broach a topic with their child, I tell them to do three things. First, you got to make sure that it's easy for your child to understand. Right? You got to use language that they'll get, that it'll click, it'll make sense to them. Second, you have to make sure it's suited for the child. Each child is different. Even though you have two children that are close in age, they may understand completely differently. So you have to make sure it's catered for each child. And then third, you got to make sure your family values are tied into it. So these three things are very important. It's very helpful to be able to teach. So let me give you an example. We're teaching Yuffie about Santa Claus. Right? It was something that we did just recently, and we had actually a moment that happened. But anyways, the way it started earlier this month, on the way home, we were telling Yuffie about a present that we're going to give her later on, and she asks us, is Santa Claus going to bring that present? And Garnet and I were very clear. We're like, no. We're the ones bringing the present. Your grandparents are giving, your grandmother brings the present. Your aunts and uncles bring the presents. Santa Claus's imagination. Santa Claus does not bring presents. So it stuck, and we had an opportunity to test a few days ago in our family event. We always have someone dress up as Santa and come and bring gifts and do some dance, and whatever happens there. Yuffie, you can see her laughing from the distance as Santa was doing his Santa stuff, and I told her, go up to Santa, go close, and she told me, I'm afraid of him. I'm like, okay, that's fine, you don't have to go up there. It's totally fine. If you see the mask, you'll know. The mask is absolutely terrifying. But what was funny was I was overhearing her talk. She was repeating something over and over again. When I got close to her, I heard her saying, you're not real, you're not real, you're not real, you're not real. And so eventually she got up, and I think she went with her uncle to Santa Claus, and asked Santa one question, are you real? I mean, you saw as genuine reality testing as you can get. Like, as a therapist, I was just super excited. A 4-year-old that's trying to attempt to understand what the parents taught with what reality is presenting. I see Santa in front of me, but I know my parents taught me Santa is imagination, right? Eventually, she was able to even figure out who the person was, and I still don't know how she did that, which was kind of interesting. We think it was the voice of the Santa that gave it away. Either way, it was really interesting to see that. There's another instance, again, using children is really a good example, when Yuffie and her cousin Luke were talking about death. We talked about death a lot. I teach Yuffie about death where we watch documentaries, and documentaries show animals dying, so we teach them about death. Bugs die in our house and outside the house, we teach, opportunity to teach Yuffie about death. So when her Meds Baba passed away, we took the opportunity to teach about death, and this is what happens, and I was giving her a heads up. We're going to go to the family. We're going to be sad. There's going to be people crying because death is sad. So, okay, she goes, and we're at the family gathering, and I overhear a conversation with her cousin Luke. Luke says, Medzmez Baba went to heaven. Yuffie says, no, he died. There you go. Again, an aspect of teaching where this method comes, and we learn a way to view the world around us, and it's tested in some capacity. The Bible is no different, right? It teaches us, and it does a really good job, and it's specifically this one thing, that it teaches us God's intentions of creation. This whole time it's been there. It's been hidden within the text, and a lot of times we just overlook it. We might ignore it, because God's plan isn't really the flashiest of plans. It's not like the best looking plan that we can think of. It's not really exciting as far as plans go. So that may be something we may consider that the Creator God, the active Creator God will be able to do. Whenever we think about God's plan, the first thing that may be coming up to in your mind is probably like an epiphany, right? In your own life. Maybe the clouds part and they spell out in light what you're supposed to do in your life, right? That's what you think about God's plan. When you think about God's plan, you think about the water parting and the dirt forms into whatever it is that you're supposed to do and whatever you're supposed to figure out, right? You apply to that specific college, you get that job, you find that person. These are the things we think about when we think about God's plan. But nope, it's already in the Bible. It's already there. Very clear, we've missed it. Interestingly, it's also one of the most repeated phrases in the Bible. There's definitely phrases repeated more. Right? What's the most repeated phrase in the Bible? Let's see if anyone knows. Starts with a do not be afraid. Right? Do not fear, do not be afraid. It comes in different forms. A very common one. It shows up about 100 to 300 times, depending on the way the grammar is written, how the words are oriented. Some people have tried to say that it shows up 365 times. So that for one day of the year, every day you won't be afraid. If anyone says that, just ignore them. They're wrong. That's not the way it is. They're just trying to sell you a book or trying to sound important. That's not true. The second most common phrase is actually tied to this. Do not be afraid. God is with you. Right? That makes a lot more sense. Right? And then repetition is important. Repetition means that whatever's being repeated is important. So that's a great phrase to keep repeating. Do not be afraid. God is with you. Fantastic. That feels great. You can go home satisfied knowing that God is with you in some capacity. But there's other things that are repeated also. The law. The law is repeated twice. Exodus and Leviticus and Deuteronomy. The word Deuteronomy literally means the second law. It's repetition. Prophets repeat themselves over and over again. The same prophet repeats the same thing that they're saying, but then tons of prophets that are also within the Bible, all kept there as repetition, right? History of Israel is repeated twice. Samuel's and Kings and Chronicles. Jesus' story, probably most important, repeated 4 times. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Instructions of Christian living. How many times does Paul say the same thing to different churches, right? Repetition. And repetition is the way that people learn. That's how it kind of sticks in your head. You keep practicing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get it. Phrases repeated over and over again should be treated very similarly, especially the phrases that carry meaning beyond their context. Just like do not be afraid, God is with you. That you can go every single day feeling that God is with you. But another one that's repeated is God's plan. It's repeated up to 40 times, and I'm leaving the number open because when I first started this study years ago, this was about 8 years ago, I found it 28 times. The first time I went through the Bible, I found that God's plan 28 times. And then, as I kept on reading the Bible, as I kept on reading other verses, other sections, I would find it again and again and again. So I'm up to 40 now. I found it 12 more times after that. I'm going to give you the one in Revelation. I can give you a list of them later if you'd like. But right now I'm going to give you the Revelation one. Turn to Revelation 21, verse 3. And if you don't want to turn, just listen to my repetition of it. This is Revelation 21, 3. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them as their God. They will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them." The verse then goes on to describe heaven, to say there's no pain in heaven, there's no crying in heaven, there's no mourning in heaven, there's no death in heaven. But the most important aspect of heaven is that we will be with God and God will be with us. That's it. That's his plan from the beginning. You see this plan introduced in Genesis when he talks to Abraham for the first time. You see it reintroduced to Moses when he reminds the Israelites that he has not forgotten them. You see it brought up again to Samuel as a reminder to the people that you don't want to turn to kings, stay with me as your leader. Through the prophets while they're being disobedient to God. Through the New Testament when the Christians are learning what it's like to be Christian even though they were Jewish from before. And finally into Revelation, when the promise of what life is going to look like after death is assured with God's presence being there. From the beginning, God has wanted to be present among his people, for his people to claim him as their God, and for him to protect us as his people. There's a lot of layers to this, so let me walk through a little bit of it. First, God claiming us as his people was a declaration. But catch this. This is really important. God was declaring this to other gods. I know this may be hard to comprehend, hard to understand, but we have to imagine putting ourselves back into the time of the Bible. The belief system that existed during the Bible times, while it was being written, but while it was being read, was that other cultures and other peoples had their own gods. I gave you a few examples of other mythologies that exist out there. Those mythologies, they believed in their own respective gods. So God proclaiming that this is my people, I am their God, is a proclamation to those other gods to say, stay away. They're mine. It's almost like a jealous way of saying that. I'm sure you've heard the term that God's jealous. Where does that jealousy come from? He wants to be exclusively the God of his people. He doesn't want them to... I mean, think about it. Think about the Old Testament. Think about all the things that they kept on messing up. What did they mess up on? Worshiping other gods. That's it. That's the big picture. That's what frustrated God more than anything else, to turn to any other God than the active Yahweh. He's saying it in a proud way. He's saying that I'll defend them. I will protect them. I'll look out for them. I'll cherish them. It's also a proclamation to other people, though. If you want to be God's people, these promises are for you as well. It's very exclusive, but then it's open access. Anyone can gain access to this. Just come believe. Just come believe and obey. That's it, and you can be part of it too. But there's another important fact to remember about God's plan, which is uniquely pointed out in Revelation. He wants to dwell amongst his people. If you read the way heaven is described in Revelation, heaven's not somewhere, it's not in a far-off place, distant, off earth, in space, who knows, like whatever the description gets. Heaven's on earth. God comes here. That's when heaven begins, when God shows up. Part of God's plan is to dwell among humans. And if you think back through all the examples of the Bible, you'll notice that's what he tried to do the entire time. He walked with humans in the Garden of Eden in Genesis 3 until they disobeyed him and couldn't be in the garden anymore. He led the Israelites through the desert in Exodus 13 as a what? A pillar of fire at night and a pillar of cloud by day. He dwelled with the Israelites in the tabernacle. Means dwelling. God's dwelling tabernacle as they traveled through the desert. Wherever they went, they would set up the tabernacle. Finally, they settled. They centralized the religion. 2 Chronicles 7, God's dwelling was the temple itself. And read that verse and just show the power of what happened when God showed up and the effect it had on everyone that was there. Of all the things, he came as a human in the New Testament and lived a full life amongst us. After Jesus, what is the explanation of what we are? We are his temple. He dwells in us on earth. Finally, we're waiting for him to come back, to dwell again on earth, but this time without limitation. The old will pass, the new way will begin. God will be our God, we will be his people. That's been God's intention for this whole time. However, if you go back to each of those dwellings, you'll notice humanity failed and pushed God away. The pillar wasn't enough because the people of God disbelieved. So he introduced the tabernacle. The tabernacle wasn't enough because the people of God disbelieved. So he introduced the temple. The temple wasn't enough because people kept disbelieving. So he became human. Jesus wasn't enough. They crucified him. Him dwelling in each of us is not enough because we constantly keep sinning and failing. So the finalization of God's plan, we know exactly what he's planning, is to not require any faith, for him to show up with us, to dwell amongst us, to be present at all times. We don't really have an understanding of what this looks like. We have no idea what heaven's going to be like other than the bare description that Revelation 20, 21, and 22 gives. But we see his plan constantly set forth throughout human history in the Bible. We see glimpses of it. So again, ultimate question we always land back on. Why is this in the Bible? Why would God reveal his plan to us so frequently? Well, he tells us part of our plan. What are we supposed to do? Revelation continues in 21 verse 7. I'll just read this to you real quick. Those who conquer will inherit these things, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. Who are those who conquer? We're not going to go through all of Revelation to explain that. Let me just give you the answer. There's two things that signify you being a person who conquers in Revelation. You believe and you obey. Very simple. It's what's been taught since the beginning of time within the Bible. At the end of the day, you're part of God's plan when you believe him and obey him. So imagine, you can answer every question about God's plan with believe and obey. So let's try a very common one that maybe is on your mind. I have no idea, but I'm going to put it there now. This is a question I've been asked so many times throughout the years, and I've asked it myself. How do I know what God has planned for me? Believe and obey. That's how you know. You're doing it. You're doing it if you believe and obey. Very simple. Does God have a very specific, very unique, catered plan for each and every one of us? Well, no, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't say that anywhere. And if you think it does, maybe you've stuck your nose a little too far into the pages of the Bible, so now you're seeing only yourself there rather than the groups of people that have constantly been calling out to God and for God to be claiming them as his people. The Bible only repeats God's generic plan for all of creation frequently. But that applies to our specific plan as well. Remember what the Bible teaches us in how we're supposed to live our lives. To know if you are doing what God wants you to do is to continue to believe and obey. If you're doing that, you're on the right track. Now, a different question that's a lot more relevant and a lot more accurate. The psychologist in me gets excited about this one. What should I do that is best suited for who I am as a person? Great question, right? That's a fantastic question. You're asking, what does God want me to do? When you're focusing on what does God want me to do, again, I've been mentioning this for months, this is very Gnostic. This is very secretive. You're relying on God being secretive and holding on to this special knowledge until you figure it out with the magic spell of faith and prayer. That's not the way the Bible works. Asking, what is the best job for my skill set and my talents is very relevant and very important. It requires you to search your innermost desires, your passions, your experiences, who you are as a person. It requires you to research options around you, talk to people, investigate opportunities. And as importantly as all these other things, it requires you to believe and obey God. More than likely, there's one specific decision that's best for you in every situation. We'll talk about that a little bit more next week when we talk about free will. But to assume God has a specific plan for each one of us is quite self-centered. To insert ourselves into the Bible and assume it was written directly for each one of us only is quite self-righteous. God's plan is not only for you, it is for all. Everyone is incorporated, included in that plan. We are all supposed to believe and obey. Now, I've mentioned this several times before, God's instructions. Whether you're reading the law of the Old Testament or the advice of the New Testament, none of God's instructions are arbitrary. They're meant to improve your life so you can live it to the best of your ability. God's not trying to see if you'll jump through any fiery hoops. He's given you the secret formula to life. Believe in him and obey his word. So on that day, God will also proclaim, you are part of his people. I am their God, they are my people. Amen. Let me leave you with a blessing. Now to him who is able to keep you from falling and to make you stand without blemish in the presence of his glory with rejoicing, to the only God our Savior, through Jesus Christ our Lord, be glory, majesty, power, and authority before all time, now and forever. Amen. Go with the peace of God.